Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a game for the unemployed. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why. I'm going to evaluate all aspects of Valhalla's gameplay, including the combat, characters, exploration, and story. Most of this video will be spoiler-free, except for the story section. At the end, I'll make a recommendation on whether or not you should pick up and play this game. Keep watching to see it all. What's up, everyone? Big Dan here. I make videos about RPGs like Mass Effect, Fallout, and Dragon Age. I explore hidden scenes, rare choices, lore videos, guides, and reviews like this one. So hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a game where you build alliances with pimp-slapping kings, rob priests of their worldly possessions, and gamble it all on dice.
Sim!
Boy, you are the goddamn devil.
If the fantasy of becoming a Viking lord tickles your fancy, you don't need to go to DC and storm the Capitol, you only need to get Ubisoft's latest title in the long-running Assassin's Creed franchise. Ubisoft gets clowned on by meme lords and posters, but many of their games, including Valhalla, are undeniably fun. The core gameplay loop of exploring, raiding, alliance building, and skilling up had me hooked and playing for hours at a stretch, even when I should have been doing other things, like making more videos for this channel, or telling Mom I love her.
Mom, I love you. P.O.P. all the time.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla starts with you picking your version of Eivor, the game's main character. In a similar vein to AC Odyssey, you can choose a male or female protagonist. I went with the bro Eivor and started the journey in Norway, which is where the prologue takes place. After completing the tutorial, stealth, and combat sections, one of the first things I noticed is that the game is incredibly gorgeous. Seriously, check out these environments. Aside from environmental beauty, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a game with zero bugs and glitches whatsoever. Bugs in a Ubisoft game? Get out of here! Wait, what are you doing? Don't look behind that curtain. In my first playthrough of Valhalla when the game launched in 2020, this was probably the buggiest game I'd ever played. They've patched out the most egregious technical problems since then, but on this playthrough, I still experienced the occasional glitch death where Eivor gets stuck on the environment and just dies. Once you've finished the prologue, Eivor, his brother Sigurd, and their newfound Hidden One companions, Basim and Hytham, set sail for England in search of glory and a new Viking kingdom. This is where the game really opens up, as you settle into your new capital called Ravensthorpe and begin the journey of establishing yourself in a new land. Assassin's Creed Valhalla has four main pillars of core gameplay: building alliances with regional leaders to progress the main story, raiding monasteries to gather resources to build your settlement, assassinating targets from the Order of Ancients, and completing a wide variety of open-world activities signified by Ubisoft's potpourri of map markers. Let's talk about alliance building since this makes up the bulk of the game. The process involves viewing the alliance map, pledging to an unlocked region, and then completing the main quest arc for said region to win an alliance with the local leader. Most regions play out along one of two lines: support a local leader's bid for power, either through warfare or diplomacy, or assassinate 3 mid-tier Order of Ancients targets in the urban environments. As the game wears on, this process starts to get really tedious, as there are 16 different regions you need to complete in England, not to mention the additional regions in Vinland, Norway, and Eivor's dream sequences in Asgard and Jotunheim. Assassin's Creed Valhalla has too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, as each region presents you with a new cast of characters that you scarcely get to know before you're moving on to the next region. It becomes increasingly difficult to remember everybody when they inevitably reappear later in the game. This is something that Ubisoft even seemed to realize, given some of the interactions between Eivor and his newfound allies.
Brother, or is it the other way around?
The only truly memorable characters for me were the Ragnarsson brothers, Ubba, Ivar, and Halfdan. Side note, if this guy's named Half Dan, where's Full Dan? Everybody else is basically either a random Christian or a random Dane. A fun challenge for yourself is to pick a random region on the map and try to remember the names of the characters from that region. Or vice versa, pick a character and try to remember what region you met them in first. It all blurs together after a while and leaves the main story feeling like one long collection of unconnected side quests, which, let's be honest, that's kind of what it is. To me, the most interesting part of Valhalla was the relationship between Eivor and Sigurd, but it takes so long for that story to play out, and you need to complete long stretches of unrelated alliance building in between those brotherly story beats. Ultimately, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is too long for its own good. It took me nearly 70 hours just to complete the main story. Hell, I could have played the entire Mass Effect trilogy in that amount of time. Completionists will easily spend well over 100 hours on this game, not including the DLC or any additional content that Ubisoft is still adding to this massively bloated experience. That being said, I want to reiterate that the core gameplay is very fun, particularly the combat, which is visceral and satisfying. I really enjoyed raiding monasteries with the boys, which is a core gameplay aspect vital to upgrading your settlement.
Take the plunder, burn the rest!
Monasteries are well stocked with raw materials and supplies, which you can use to construct new shops and buildings in Ravensthorpe. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a historically accurate Viking game, which means you're not allowed to kill priests during your raids, because we all know Vikings had a reputation for sparing unarmed civilians as they pillaged England and Ireland. Come on, Ubisoft. If I want to carve up a couple of priests with a Viking hammer after a long week in the office, I should be able to do that. I thought this was a Viking game, bro.
We fight!
Harm one too many civilians, and you'll get a game over screen faster than Ubisoft can say class action lawsuit. Though I will say it is pretty funny to just watch the civilians run away in a panic, shouting out random Latin phrases like Fluga, Fluga!
Fluga! Fluga!
At least I think that's Latin. I don't really know. Now, I've mentioned settlement building a few times, but don't worry, Preston Garvey won't be popping out of the bushes telling you that another settlement needs your help. You just have one settlement to build up, and the only thing you'll be doing is using supplies and raw material to construct new buildings in Ravensthorpe. This will give you access to new merchants, a few side quests, and improvements to the feast buff. Ultimately though, settlement building isn't vital to Valhalla's core story, and you can safely skip most of it if you're not digging the monastery raiding part of the game. But who doesn't love a good old Viking raid?
We feed the raven this day!
Speaking of love, what about romance? Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a game where you can bang your brother's wife, but you wouldn't do that, would you?
Deeds are more direct than words.
Took you time to find me. Was it for this?
There are a bunch of romance options in Valhalla, but most of them are dudes. Seriously, it's a sausage fest. You'll be swatting away bones left and right because there are like 8 dude romances. Meanwhile, if you're interested in women, your only choices are Petra and Randvi, you know, your brother's wife.
Was it for this?
I experienced the Petra romance on my first playthrough, and I didn't want to betray Sigurd, so this time I decided to make Eivor a MGTOW Sigma male lone wolf. Though we did have a few one-night stands.
Are you so in need of suitors that any passing woodsman or Vikinger will do?
Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a game where you assassinate people occasionally. Hytham will give you a list of Order of the Ancients members to eliminate, though you'll have to do some investigating and clue searching on your own to find some of the targets. Roughly half of these will be eliminated as part of the main story. Honestly, the whole assassin thing feels very far in the background of this game. Alliance building is a much more integral part of the experience. On another note, and I may be out of line here, but why is the Order of Ancients bad exactly? I'm pretty new to the franchise, so I don't know if there's any lore from the other games that fills in the gaps, but they don't seem like a compelling villain in the game. If you talk to Hytham, all he says is basically, "They're evil." At least in AC Odyssey, the Cult of Cosmos was more clearly villainous, seeing how they were actively trying to kill you and your family. Plus, they wore those creepy, eyes wide shut style masks. But in Valhalla, while many of your assassination targets commit crimes and immoral acts, some of them are just regular grifters. Also, it's weird seeing Eivor moralize to these goons during the bizarre post-assassination conversations. Like, bro, we literally just burnt down an entire village with Ivar Ragnarsson, and now you're getting on your moral high horse with some dude who's basically just running a medieval Ponzi scheme? It's weird. So what about side content? What's the deal with that? As you take a look at your map, you'll notice a large collection of yellow, turquoise, and white dots scattered across the game world. The yellow dots are wealth, basically new gear, abilities, and ingots to upgrade your weapons and armor. The blue dots are called mysteries, which mostly include world events, combat challenges, and puzzles. And the white dots are for artifacts like collectibles and treasure maps, that sort of thing. The weapon and armor system in Valhalla has seen an overhaul since AC Odyssey. Instead of constantly looting new gear, you only find a few items throughout the game and upgrade them as you go along. The benefit of this is that you're not constantly fiddling around with your inventory every time you defeat a group of enemies or level up your character. But the flip side is that you won't have much incentive to hunt those little yellow dots on your map once you have a gear set that you like. I pretty much used a blacksmith's hammer and a set of magister's armor for the entire game, and I just didn't feel the need to look for other gear. Same thing with abilities. Once I discovered a handful of abilities that I really liked, I didn't really set out to collect every book of knowledge on the map. The white dot collectibles are pretty self-explanatory. I enjoy picking up collectibles in open world games, so this was oddly fun and satisfying for me. My favorite part was tracking down the cursed symbols, mostly because of the cool, ominous music that plays when you find one, and Eivor's reactions.
Troll cursed corruption lurks here.
Ah, I see Eivor is familiar with the YouTube comments section. The blue dots, which signify mysteries, offer a wide range of activities, only half of which are actually fun. The one I want to talk about are the so-called world events, which replace side quests in the game. There are no side quests in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or maybe it's more accurate to say there are no main quests. Those have been replaced by side quests, and the side quests are replaced by world events, quick little stories that have no journal entry.
Well, you'll have to get down somehow. Can you see a haystack or something?
A haystack? Are you mad? From this height? That's certain death!
They've actually lowered the bar from fetch quests, because at least with those you'd get a journal entry and have to travel to a new location to complete them. Most world events can be completed within 100 meters of where they start. Some of them are literally just a single conversation without any real objective. Here's how most world events play out.
I toil over the ale barrel.
In my home, there's only one way to settle this honorably.
I'll pummel him. Give him a taste of a labourer's fist. Fucker!
It's true that we were once all so happy.
And that's basically it for exploratory content in AC Valhalla. Alright, let's talk about the story. If you want to avoid spoilers, then skip to this timestamp for my final verdict on the game. Assassin's Creed Valhalla starts with Eivor watching his parents get killed at the hands of rival clan leader Kjotve the Cruel. Eivor spends almost 2 decades plotting his revenge, which he eventually achieves near the end of the prologue. After Eivor's parents died, he was taken in and raised by Sigurd's family, so he came to call Sigurd a brother, even though they aren't biologically related. Sigurd is next in line to inherit his father's throne. But his father is a drunk, and he bends the knee to King Harald, an ambitious leader who seeks to unite all of Norway under his rule. Sigurd gets really angry and is like, "F you, Dad! I'm going to England to build my own kingdom!" So Eivor and Sigurd round up the boys and set sail for new lands. After wiping out a group of bandits, the clan settles in their new home at Ravensthorpe. Eivor is tasked with helping Sigurd and the Raven clan build alliances throughout England. Meanwhile, the mysterious character Basim is bending Sigurd's ear, talking about his destiny and other nonsense that Eivor doesn't understand. Sigurd becomes obsessed with tracking down a rogue priest named Fulke, who he believes can lead him to an ancient artifact known as the Saga Stone, an artifact which he has seen in his dreams. Meanwhile, Eivor is also having visions that suggest he will betray his brother Sigurd, a fate which he desperately wants to avoid. During the siege of Cinnabel Castle, Sigurd and Eivor parley with King Alfred to prevent a bloodbath from their allied troops. Fulke betrays Sigurd by suggesting that Alfred take him prisoner, and he goes willingly to prevent a battle. While Sigurd is in captivity, Fulke tortures him to try and draw out his true power. Eivor spends more time building alliances before you're able to advance the story and track down Fulke in Kent. This time lapse forces a confrontation with Dag, another one of Sigurd's lieutenants, who basically says that Eivor has abandoned Sigurd to seize power for himself. Dag challenges Eivor to a holmgang, forcing Eivor to kill him. Eivor eventually tracks down Fulke in Kent, but not before she escapes and leaves his brother's severed arm as a present. She retreats to Porchester Castle, which Eivor eventually sacks, killing Fulke and rescuing Sigurd. Unfortunately, Sigurd is not the same guy after his time with Fulke. He turns into a brooding, short-tempered man, raving about his destiny and claiming that he is a god.
Born of gods is who I am. A lord of war. A Roman Mars. I know who I am. I know my destiny. And you will not hinder me!
Eivor, confused and heartbroken, turns back to alliance building. After completing many more regional arcs, Sigurd will request that Eivor accompany him back to Norway, for he has something amazing to show Eivor. They journey through a snowy fjord that Sigurd saw in his visions, and open up an Isu vault using the Saga Stone that Sigurd recovered in England. At this point, Sigurd and Eivor plug into the Matrix and live in a simulation of Valhalla. Funnily enough, poor Sigurd, even in the matrix of his dreams, continues to get his arm cut off day in and day out.
The arm! The arm! Always the fucking arm!
After several days of repetitive hedonism, Eivor, the based and red-pilled Vikinger that he is, declares that this isn't Valhalla and forces his way back out into the real world, only to find that Basem has betrayed them. On my first playthrough, Basem's betrayal was really confusing to me. To fully understand it, you need to complete not only the main story, but Eivor's dream sequences with Volka and all 10 Animus anomalies that you can find in the open world. Completing the latter will grant you this hidden cutscene.
Let it flow. None may follow. Loki least of all. I will find you, Mad One, on the far side of our doom.
So basically, the Norse gods, Odin, Loki, Tyr, etc., were all Isu beings that uploaded themselves into some kind of simulation. Basem is Loki reincarnated or something like that, and he is seeking revenge on Odin, who is reincarnated as Eivor. It's pretty convoluted. Here's an audio recording I made one evening as I tried to make sense of all of this. So Loki bangs the blue-haired giant Smurf lady and has a wolf as a child? How's that work? You know? And then I guess Basem is Loki reincarnated, like not as a vision or a dream or whatever, like that, like legit. He's Loki reincarnated. Eivor is Odin reincarnated, and it seems like Sigurd is Tyr reincarnated, and they're all like Isu beings. How does that work? I mean, I haven't played the other Assassin's Creed games other than Odyssey, so I think there's a few gaps that need to get filled in. Anyhow, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a good game, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, the story in Valhalla is pretty disjointed. It feels more like reading a collection of loosely connected short stories rather than participating in one grand cohesive narrative. Overall, it was pretty interesting, but the delivery could have used some work. So do I recommend Assassin's Creed Valhalla? At the end of the day, this is a very fun game that is way too long for its own good, unfortunately. I do recommend it to people who have lots of free time on their hands and who want to dig into a big open world Viking experience. However, if you're more pressed for time, but want a similar type of experience, I highly recommend Ghost of Tsushima for PlayStation players, because that is an exclusive title, or Assassin's Creed Odyssey if you're on PC or Xbox. Odyssey is still fairly long and has its own issues with level-gated content, but it's still much shorter than Valhalla and is incredibly fun in its own right. So there you have it, my review of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to Big Dan Gaming for more RPG videos and reviews. If there's another game you'd like to see me cover in a review, let me know in the comments below. Also, shout out to all the channel members for supporting my content. Until next time, this has been Big Dan.
I should go.